Welcome everyone to the afternoon session on sharing data across ArcGIS systems. I'm Jamie Dennis. I'll be your moderator today, but the real star of the show is Corey Whittaker with Esri. Corey is a solution engineer with Esri, helping state government agencies achieve their goals. He received a master's degree in GIS from Arizona State University. Go Sun Devils. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but he is also a two-time Special Achievement in GIS Award recipient, a SAG award, when he was from Arizona in Valley Metro and at the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. So we're really thrilled to have Corey here today, and I'm not going to waste up any more of the time. Just let you know, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and Corey will respond to those at the appropriate moment. And hopefully our chat is working, but you can feel free to do that. We did have some technical issues in a previous session with some chat, but if that's working, feel free to communicate in there. But again, please put the questions in the Q&A. Now I'm going to stop sharing and turn that over to you, Corey. Are you there?
I am here, Jamie. Thank you so much for that intro. And let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see your screen.
All right.
That's great.
Woohoo! I was, always worried about that. That's the one moment you're like, is it going to work or not? Anyway, but thank you for that intro, Jamie, and everyone that's part of the AGIC Symposium. Thank you for having me here. Jamie mentioned my name's Corey Whittaker, based out of our Denver office here with Esri, but as you heard in my bio, I came from Arizona just a couple years ago, so still have great ties with the state, and I'm glad to be here to talk about collaboration. This idea of sharing data across systems. We're going to be talking specifically about one part of collaboration called distributed collaboration. There is another set for partnered collaboration, and we're not going to get into that today, but if you have questions along those lines, I'll share my email at the end. We can definitely set up some time to talk. But this idea of sharing data across systems, whether it be within systems within your own organization, with different organizations. There's a lot of ideas and things that this seamless sharing can do to help your business cases, to make your job easier. And that's what we're going to go over today. So here's our agenda. We're going to do a quick little introduction about what distributed collaboration is, how we share this information, the options that we have, because there are different options of sharing data across. I will do one part of the collaboration setup. Due to limitations with our live stream, I had to jump off of my VPN, but I will do as much of the sharing as I can. But I think with the information that we're going to be talking about of sharing, setting these up and the sharing options, we'll get the point across. But again, I will offer to anyone who would like to see this demonstration to its fullest extent sometime afterwards, and we can set up some time and go over those. We're going to talk about the prerequisites of this shared editing, which is a very cool feature we will get into. That came out in the latest version of ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. And these are these last two I really want to point out because we all every day deal with the technical details, but one of the things that I really want to share is some of these tips for success, because as we'll go through those, I will share that I've went through and had almost every one of those bullet points fail because I was learning how to use this type of collaboration, how to do these things. So these are the types of tips I want to share with you. So maybe make this transition to using collaboration a lot easier for you. All right. So what is distributed collaboration? Let's talk about that first. Collaboration is a way to share data content, predominantly maps, apps, and layers between two or more GIS environments. That's a point I really want you to look at. 2 or more GIS environments. It doesn't have to just be one ArcGIS Online, one enterprise. You could have a deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise that you have a centralized location, but you might have satellite offices that you want data to funnel into and data to funnel out. So that's something to consider, 2 or more. But it really is based on a foundation of trust between the participating organizations. This trust works even to the level that your own enterprise environment doesn't even have to be open to the public. If your enterprise is completely behind your own firewall, you can still send information out to other organizations because of this foundation of trust. And it's shared using groups. So once we get this set up of creating the collaboration, creating that foundation of trust, the only thing that you would have to do is, oh, I have a features service here that's an authoritative one that I want to share with another organization. All I have to do is share it with the group that we specify in the collaboration setup, and the data is automatically shared with your other organizations. And I know this is a big one for a lot of people, that no coding or scripting knowledge is required. It's all done through the graphic user interface. So it's a way for you, let's just say you have a small GIS shop that you don't have access to a developer, but you want to share information with others, with other organizations. The ability to just walk through these steps themselves without any kind of coding, without any scripting, makes it a lot easier for you. Okay, so let's kind of go into what constitutes a collaboration. Now, I like to think of these as, I'm gonna have a party at my house, all right? I'm the host, and I want to invite people to come to my party. That's a kind of way of thinking with collaboration. You have a host organization who sets it up, who sets the rules. Okay, like if we're going back to our party analogy, if I'm wanting my friend, to bring in the chips and the dip, and someone else is bringing drinks, and whoever else is bringing all of this, the host is usually the one making those types of decisions, making those types of assignments. And the guest organization, or the guest to the party, grabs that information or what was asked for you to bring, and brings it to the host, and we all have a great time. That is a good analogy with collaborations. So you have a host organization. It can be an ArcGIS Online. It can be an ArcGIS Enterprise. And then you have guest organizations. So if you think about it, you have a workflow that, let's just walk through these just for, so the host creates the collaboration and sends an invite. An invitation, an actual file that says .invite is created when you do this collaboration setup. So think about it as this invitation that's going out for our party. You take your invite and hand it off to the guest organization. So then the guest organization accepts the invitation and creates another file, this response file, and sends it back to the host. The host accepts the response and the trust is established. Okay, that's what I want to bring up. That process of creating these two files, this invitation and response files. The content of those files is what creates this trust between the two organizations. We've seen in the past, if you share data with other organizations in ArcGIS Online or so on, that if you, a lot of times you might have to have a login for that other organization. There's ways through collaboration that you can send data even behind firewalls, without VPNs, send data to another organization and not have to have them log into your enterprise, which is key. We're going to get to that, a good reason for that here in a second, but that establishment of the trust is seamless. After that is done, data can flow back and forth on a scheduled cadence. You can say, I want all this information to sync every hour, every day, every 7 days. However your business needs dictate, this type of synchronization can happen between those. And then once those invitation and response files are accepted by each organization, that creates that trusted collaboration. Okay, one little tidbit that I want to make sure you bring up and you understand. When it comes to having a ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise collaboration, ArcGIS Online can only serve as the host. So we'll see that here in a moment in part of my abbreviated demonstration, but ArcGIS Online is the one that creates this invitation file that goes to ArcGIS Enterprise. But if you were to have a setup of ArcGIS Enterprise and another ArcGIS Enterprise environments, say 2 different organizations, then it can be either the host or the guest. I know that can be confusing, but just remember, if ArcGIS Online is ever included in a collaboration, it can only serve as the host. Okay, let's look at some of the patterns of collaboration. We think of the definition. I don't want to go, well, the Webster's dictionary, it's fine. No, I'm not going to go through that, but it's collaboration between 2 participants or more. We'll get to that in a second. But here's a good example of probably the most common collaboration that we see. We have an ArcGIS Online organization and an ArcGIS Enterprise organization. Data can flow from enterprise into online and back. So data, you can set this up to where, depending on how you share your data within those groups, it can flow from either enterprise to online. Now here's another one of ArcGIS Enterprise to ArcGIS Enterprise. But I had mentioned before, collaboration can be between many participants. Here's a great example of 2 different enterprises feeding in to ArcGIS Online. I'm thinking of regional governments, to where if they have different cities that want to feed information into, say, a fusion center or something along those lines, to where 2 different city governments are working together, but they want to share data from each of their authoritative sources, you can use collaboration to send from each of those enterprise environments into the online environment. Here's a good example. I call it the hub and spoke model, to where you have a central hub of all of your data, but maybe let's say you have satellite offices. I've seen this in some larger state organizations where you have a centralized office, but you have, say, district offices. This is a good way to say data can flow from the central office to each of those district offices as well. Okay, so a little recap of our key concepts of collaboration. Our host, it creates the collaboration and invites guests to collaborate. The host is hey, we're doing that party this weekend. And specifying what access they have for the workspace. So if you're the host, you can actually say, I only want to receive data. I'm not going to send you any data. Or vice versa. I only want to send or receive data. I don't want to send you it. The guest has a great setup too, because like I said, it's invited by the host, but it controls the sync schedule. So the guests are the one who say, we're going to sync every hour. We're going to sync every day, every 7 days or so on. And I put that bullet point in on the bottom again, that ArcGIS Enterprise can only serve as the host. Kind of want to get that into your minds, that is a no-go. You have to be able to have ArcGIS Online Service host. And another concept that you'll see on this is that it is all related to the workspace itself. So this entire workflow that you're seeing, I hope everyone see my mouse, is the workspace contains all of these. And yeah, Jamie, if we got some questions coming in, let's just start those in.
Okay, sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you answered this or not, or if you're going to later. It says, is there limitations to the relationship if one party is host versus invitee? Basically, I'm getting at any best practices for setting up collaboration relationships, and if it matters which side is the host.
This is a good slide that we answer this question on. One, if ArcGIS Online is ever involved, it is automatically going to be the host. So there's that. But as far as the host and the guest, I'm trying to use the same terminology, but I think we'll get to the question, is setting up who will do and have control over the sync schedule here. That's key, because that only comes from the guest. So take that into your planning as well. If you are wanting to, let's say we have two different enterprise environments, so either of them can be the host or the guest. Whoever's going to be in charge of the sync schedule should be set up as the guest rather than the host. I think that answers the question. So that, I think that's the most important thing to think of, is who's going to be in charge of the sync schedule. Okay.
Okay. All right. Do you want to just have time for a couple more? There's a few that are
Sure.
coming in on this part.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So one says, how many collaborations can enterprise host?
That's a good question. The most I've seen is 4, but are we, I guess maybe we can get some more clarification from the chat. Are they talking about how many times they could serve as the host, or how many collaborations can you be a part of with, like, say, different organizations? So that might be a little clarification we need to get from them. But going back to, let me go back to my slides here.
Okay.
So this example here, this
right.
particular example has one as the host, but they are working with 4 different organizations. Do not quote me on this. I have not seen what the limit is. I'm sure there is one. In the other side of the realm, this one we have called partnered collaboration, which is between ArcGIS Online organizations. The max I've seen there is 10. So something to be considered, but I have not seen a max myself. But usually it's rare to have one centralized organization sharing with 10 others, but it could happen. So that's something that we can look into deeper.
Okay, sorry, I'm like looking. There was
No
one
worries.
other. Okay, hi Corey. We recently moved our public GIS services to AGOL and are developing a Python script to keep several of the more dynamic layers in sync with our SDE. Would collaboration be an easier way to accomplish this without exposing our services to the public? Meaning, we would like to keep the strain off of our portal, and we want to keep our portal internal.
That is a very, very common workflow, and I had the perfect demonstration for it if my VPN wasn't being a little bit cantankerous today. But yes, that is an excellent workflow. I have personally worked with information stored in a SQL Server database, published to Portal. From Portal, pushed it through collaboration to ArcGIS Online. And I had it set on a 1-hour synchronization. No Python scripts, nothing needed to do that. So if I make a change in my portal, I know at the top of the hour, or let me go back there. If I make a change in a data set that I have in my SQL Server, that data will then flow through at the top of the hour, every hour to ArcGIS Online. And the way that it's set up, that particular enterprise is, like I said, behind my VPN. I can't get to it right now, even if I tried. But this setup, I'm going to go back here to create this trusted collaboration. Once you do that, the VPN is no longer required. Your public ArcGIS Online is connected to your portal, but no one else can get to that. It's all done behind the scenes. So that way your enterprise can stay behind your firewall, no external access at all. And I've even talked to others at Esri. If you've ever seen our Architecting the ArcGIS System white paper, I spoke to one of the authors of that. He very much was saying, yes, this is an amazing best practice, because one, you're not opening your enterprise to anyone, but utilizing collaboration, data that was still stored in your enterprise geodatabases, SQL, Oracle, whatever it might be, can go to the public without granting them access to it. Huge benefit there. Great security practice too, because the question also said, you know, taking strain off your portal, so that way you're not having to up your instances of each one of those services if it's a well-used service. By pushing it through collaboration to ArcGIS Online, and if the demand grows for that, hey, it's on ArcGIS Online, let Esri take care of that. You're not having to worry about that. We'll put the extra services and resources to keep that service going. Excellent question. I want to give thumbs up to who asked that, because you got like 4 steps ahead in my presentation about where I was going with that. So highly, highly recommended to do that type of a setup.
Excellent. That was Veronica Nixon. So thanks to Veronica for that question.
Oh,
So,
Veronica, we'll talk more about this later. I think we have a meeting later this week.
Great. Okay, I'll let you continue on, and then I'll let you know if
Right.
there's a bunch more questions come up.
Yes, please, Jamie, jump in if there are more questions, because we have a lot of information, but it's a way to get me to stop and not get too deep into the PowerPoint. Okay, so we talked about the key concepts. The host can send and receive only, send and receive, and so on. And the workspace connects all those in. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about, we have this overarching concept of what collaboration is. But let's talk a little bit about the data that we're talking mostly about data sets, feature services that we're sharing. How do we make this work in the most efficient way? So when we are sharing our layers, and I'll show this time permitting in the demonstration of starting the collaboration, but there are 2 options when it comes to sharing feature layers in collaboration. Share as a copy. Now, if you think about it, just how the word says, what it's doing is it's taking a snapshot, like I mentioned at the top of the hour. Here's what my data looks like. I want to share that as a copy. Just take that and then move it to the other organization. There is no connection there. There's no need to log in and then share as a reference. Basically what it's doing is, if you've ever grabbed your services URL and shared that with someone else, how they can just paste that in and go right to your services. That's basically what's happening here, but behind the security of the collaboration. This one, I want to point this out, is shared it's not copied, but just references back to the source. So in Veronica's example, if you have data in your enterprise geodatabase and you want to share that through collaboration as a reference, they're still going to need credentials and all of that to get to that information. This is where references come in handy. As soon as something is changed, obviously, if you're referencing back to the source data, that data is available immediately. So if I were to make a change in my SQL database saying that this is now zoned residential versus commercial or whatever it might be, as soon as I say save those edits, they're available to the other person on the other end of the collaboration. because of the shared as reference, because it's basically granting direct access. So that's something to be considered as well. It's direct access. And credentials are required to access to secure content. But with share as a copy, it's copied from one organization and published as its own separate feature service and hosted feature layer in the other organization. So let's take our zoning example that we just shared. If I make a change to a zoning layer and share that through as a copy, that other organization will have its own copy of that zoning layer. There's a break. I could point here to see how this one has the dotted line. It still goes back. No, there is a complete break. The person in this organization, I'm using my cursor, I hope everyone can see that, does not have direct access to this one. It's a copy. That's the best way to say it. But layer needs to be resync or be sync enabled. We'll get to that in a moment of getting these, preparing these data layers for this type of situation with the share as a copy. And the edits are synced on a schedule. I had talked about top of the hour or every day. However that sync schedule is set up, the person in the other organization will not see those changes until the sync is completed. This is new. I want to point this out to at 10.9, edits can be done. This is enterprise, excuse me, version 10.9. You can choose to allow edits to be done by both participants, so the host and the guest, and it can be synced on a schedule. So basically, you're granting editing rights to the other organization as well. So if you are collaborating, not just sharing data, but you'll both have a hand in updating the data. If you're on enterprise version 10.9, syncs are, the data can be edited and have synced on a schedule by both participants. So adding that next little arrow back, so the edits are synced. Okay, so this is just another diagram of looking at the share as a copy. You have the one-way editing, that's the default. You have to enable the two-way editing. So if you already have a collaboration set up and you are running version 10.9, you have to enable that. So it's not like it's going to come out of the box. Someone can, if you share a copy of a data, they can edit it. So a little peace of mind there. But then we have the share as a reference. So this is kind of the hierarchy of, or the decision tree, I would say. Are you sharing as a reference or a copy? Well, you choose reference, you're done. You share as a copy, you have a couple more choices to make. And again, I'm throwing a lot of information out there. Jamie, if there's questions come up, please jump in and I'm ready to answer those.
Okay, there are a few other things that came up. One I missed, I think, before. Jen Winterland wanted to know, can you share, whoops, I gotta find what I just said. Oh, can you share a pro-con of the use of distributed versus partner collaborations? And maybe you can share that at the end of the discussion, she says. Mm-hmm. And is there a reason why there is a limit to 10 partner collaborations per entity?
The reason for the limit is, I couldn't tell you. I'm part of a ArcGIS Online organization here at Esri, and it cut us off after 10. So we couldn't do anything else. So we're like, oh, well, are you still need, anyway. That's just anecdotal example. Why it is that way, I do not know. I can research that, but there really is nothing that's been told to us so far of why that limit of 10. As far as the pro-con, the partnered versus distributed, partnered is strictly ArcGIS Online to ArcGIS Online. So if there's ever a time that enterprise is involved, you'll need to use distributed. And another pro-con on that, if you have a situation where you want to think, have two ArcGIS Online organizations and an enterprise organization working together, that can't work. only one ArcGIS Online organization can be part of a collaboration with an enterprise. So if you think about our view of having one enterprise, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to take that back. Only one ArcGIS Online can be part of and be the host. Sorry, let me clarify that. Only one ArcGIS Online organization be the host. There's different examples, and for this person, I'm happy that we can talk afterwards and see what we can get to that. But if anytime that ArcGIS Enterprise involved, work with distributed, it'll be much, much easier that way. So I hope that answers that pro-con question.
Okay, great. Chuck Powell clarified his about, I think he asked the question about the limit. So he said, is there a limit of collaborations between enterprise host to ArcGIS Online guest?
ArcGIS Online can never be the guest. So if ArcGIS Online is ever involved, it has to be the host.
Okay. Oh, I got my other ones coming in here. You want to keep answering? Let me know if you're.
Sure, let's go. We're about halfway through our time, and I'm about halfway through my slides, so we're doing good.
Okay, so Ryan Blum does this a lot. If you're not going to answer this later, he says, can the schedule be set per data item shared, or is it all data every time? For example, can I schedule base map data to push every month, but ownership data every day?
Great question. I would ask a couple follow-ups to that. If it is from ArcGIS, excuse me, online to ArcGIS Enterprise, since it's only one of those at a time, everything does a sync at the same time. So anything in that group is run through at that same cadence, whether you choose once an hour or once a week or so on. That being said, if it's enterprise to enterprise, you could have multiple collaborations, and you could set up different groups that could do base maps every month, data sets every hour. So I think we'd have to look a little deeper into what environments would be as part of that, but intriguing concept. So like I said, great question. So that's one we'd have to dive into deeper.
Okay. And then Ryan also asks, and you may not be able to answer this in this session, but I'm not sure. He says, can we use this with our relationship with AZGeo?
My spidey sense is saying probably not, because you have each one of these to utilize collaboration. You have to be an administrator in the organization to be able to set this up. So I don't know if the folks at AZGeo want to grant that to people to be able to use this. I kind of doubt it, but that's another thing to consider, is to set this up, you have to be an administrator.
Okay. And there is an AZGeo session, I think tomorrow or later this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we can always pose that question to them there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other one just came in. You ready for you want another one?
Let's do one more, then we'll jump back in.
Then we'll jump back in. Okay. How does the credit cost of hosting a collaboration compare to hosting the same data set on ArcGIS Online? Does the frequency of the sync affect credit costs?
I do not believe it does. The credit cost on ArcGIS Online usually revolves around storage. So if you think of it, this is just as if you were storing a similar data set that you publish from ArcGIS Pro. So the credit cost would be identical as far as something coming in from collaboration versus coming in from ArcGIS Pro. Both of those, however many megabytes, there it has attachments such as photos. All of those would play into account as you normally would have it. So I don't think there'd be a difference in the credit cost. That's obviously something to consider, because if you're trying to get, say, all the parcels in Maricopa County, that would be a huge data set versus a smaller one that might be, I'm going to go back to my Valley Metro days, all the bus routes. So another thing to consider, especially if you are the organization that has the ArcGIS Online, because obviously in ArcGIS Enterprise, you take care of all the storage yourself. But if it's going to ArcGIS Online and it's managed by Esri, then that would play into account on how many credits is used. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, let's just jump right back in. We're going through there. So here's just some more shared editing examples of the edits and synced. I'm going to just kind of go through those quickly because we talked about those. So what types of edits are supported? Geometry and attributes. So if you were to go in and change, going back to my the Valley Metro example, if you were to change one of the bus routes, say it goes into a neighborhood and before it didn't, that's a geometry change. That is supported in collaboration, as well as attributes. And one thing that I want to specify, when you do these types of edits, if you have a large data set, it doesn't send the entire data set each time. So if you make only one change, like we're looking at this attribute change of moving the state from, let's say, Texas to New Mexico, it's not syncing the entire data set. It's syncing the changes. So only the deltas go through. So that next sync will be quicker. So something to consider. So if you have a large data set, consider, running those, say, off hours, because you can do, and I wish I could show it here, but my VPN is not cooperating. If you have it set to, say, sync every week, if you need to go in and push a sync through, say you make a major change that you want to get to the other organization, you can go in and do a unscheduled sync, and that's totally supported. So something to consider on this. Okay, we're going to go into the steps very quickly of starting this collaboration. And said, I wish I could show the other end, but if anyone would like to talk about that afterwards, we can go to those steps, but they're very similar. So I'm going to go into my ArcGIS Online organization here. So this is one I am an admin on. So like I said, that is a requirement to do those. So to get to collaborations, you go up here in the top to your organization. And Jamie, is that coming through okay with the change to the web browser?
Yes, it appears to be so far. Yes.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure that I'm not talking to a blank page. So
I would have let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you click over here to organization, run over here to settings in your blue header. Now, if you look along the left-hand side, you have collaborations. So here are the partnered, like I said, we had talked about that earlier. Those are between ArcGIS Online organizations. So I want you to go down a little bit further to distributed. So this, just how the header says, between ArcGIS Online and Enterprise. So to create a collaboration, click right here. There's a couple steps you go through, and I'll walk you through each one of those. And some gotchas. There have been some gotchas here that I want you all to see that I've run into. So first off, I want to give the collaboration a name, and so I'm going to call it ArcGIS Demo. Give a description. I personally like putting in here the 2 or more organizations that you are going to be a part of this. Just for my understanding, because we saw that there are multiple collaborations coming out of this ArcGIS Online. So it's a good way to understand it. So I'll just say ArcGIS Demo with, our environment is called ECS. So that's where my enterprise system is. ECS Enterprise. Next. This is where we provide a workspace name. Now, this might seem a little redundant, but I usually try to use the workspace name of, I'm going to call it ArcGIS ECS collaboration. So this is where I'm starting, or this is for our normal one. let's say like mine is the government admin. So I would say government admin and so on, but just ways that you can understand where this goes. And to be honest, I just copy and paste this. Let's be serious. Okay, this is my first gotcha. So if you remember, we had talked about all of these are done with sharing to a group. Now, I'm sure all of us have existing groups in here. This one has quite a few. The gotcha that I have found is it works much smoother if you create a new group. So what I usually do with these is name the group after the organization that you're sending the information to. So I would call this BCS Enterprise. But that's just my own idiosyncrasy of doing those. You can name these groups however you would like, but I would highly recommend always starting with a new group. Put in your tags and hit next. Okay, so here's a couple things that come up. We had talked about the sync settings that's going to be set on the other organization, but some things to see here. Feature layers and views from my portal, or I don't like that it says portal. I wish it said my organization because portal is a different way. Anyway, are sent as references or copies. So remember, references, if I were to send that to my enterprise organization, they would basically need a login to be able to access the data versus copies. It's a direct break. Everyone has a copy of the data. So for this one, I'm going to choose copies. All right, we have a couple things here. Collaboration participants receives a lot of yada yada. This is key. Enable sync on the source feature. If any one of you have used Survey 123 field maps or back in the day Collector, to be able to work offline, you had to enable sync. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're creating an offline copy. So we need to make sure that enabled sync, and we'll get to that a little bit more here in a minute. Oh, it's going by fast. We're about 10, 15 minutes away. So share it as a copy. And then if you want to do that two-way editing, you have to select here. And then once you do that, you say save and invite. It's going to ask you for the organization URL. So whatever your organization URL is, you put it in here. And once you do that, you say save and send invitation, and that creates that invite file. So if you are, let's look at the situation where you're working with your own organizations, ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. Odds are, if you're the administrator on the online, you're probably the administrator on the enterprise. So you would just find that file, upload it, and go on. But if you're sending this to another organization, you would have to find that invite file in your downloads or wherever it might be to send over to them. And like I said, I wish I could show you the next step, but without the VPN, it is not cooperating. But if anyone would like that type of demonstration, I'm happy to do that after our session. So I'm just going to cancel out of this because I can't finish that out. But that's, I hope you see, that's where you start your collaboration. Again, if ArcGIS Online is involved at all, you have to use it as the host. If you're working in enterprise, the settings are the same way. You go over here to organization, settings, and then look for collaborations on the side. Now, one thing I will say, I doubt there's many out there, but there could be. To use collaborations at all within enterprise, you have to be running at least version 10.5. Now, obviously, we're on 10.9, so that's a few back, but I wanted to put that out there that could be an issue. So let's go back to here. So that was creating the collaboration. Again, wish I could show more, but due to limitations of the stream. So any questions at this point, Jamie?
Yes, we do have a question regarding,
Right.
let's see, does your SQL data need a GUID to sync with ArcGIS Online from Enterprise?
Yes. So that's the global ID. I was going to get into that in here in a couple slides, but yes, to sync with anything. So even if it isn't in your SQL, if it's in a file geodatabase that you're referencing, or if it's published to the ArcGIS data store as part of your enterprise deployment, and you want to sync it as a copy, let's just point that out, as a copy, then yes, you need to have the global ID. You guys are doing great about seeing what my slides are going to be 3 slides from now. So again, I think that is exactly 3 slides away. We're going to talk about the prerequisites.
That's awesome.
Okay, any other questions on that, Jane?
That's it for now.
Okay, so let's go on. One thing I will say, and this is a great slide, and I'm happy to share the slides with anyone. I don't know if Age is going to do that, but if anyone wants that, I'll put my email up. You can obviously get, and I'll send those to you. But planning ahead is key. You got to know who's going to be the host, who's going to be the guests, what data. We've already heard about some that they want to sync on a weekly basis versus hourly. So, you know, building the plane as you're flying it can be fun sometimes, but it could lead to you having to go, okay, we got to redo this. We're finding out requirements that we didn't know about ahead of time. So the sake of time, I'm not going to go through those, but I'm happy to share these with anyone after the session. And some great business needs, but let's look at those prerequisites. This is saying shared editing, but it also is for the copy function of moving data across from enterprise to online and vice versa. So for the shared editing, you need to have at least version 10.9 or greater. 10.91 is going to be coming out soon in ArcGIS Online. The workspaces themselves, for the shared editing, it needs to be again created in version 10.9 access. But this is what I wanted to get to. These are the feature layer settings to be able to get the shared editing, but really to get the copy to work well. Sync needs to be enabled. We kind of already talked about that. Bidirectional editing. So I guess I didn't have it in there. So great question asking about the global ID. You need to have the global ID in there, but also that third bullet point supports replica tracking or also versioning. So really those 3 things, I'm gonna say them again. Sync enabled, global IDs, and either replica tracking or versioning. Those 3 things need to be set up on every layer that you're going to be doing a copy, but you can see there's a few other requirements if you want to do the shared editing. So great question coming up earlier. And here's some places that you can find more information about that. You go into the REST services to see if sync is enabled, whether replica tracking is in there, and then what runtime if you were wanting to do the shared editing. But there's different places in your enterprise or online that you can see those. If it is something coming out of like say SQL Server or Oracle or any of those coming out of ArcGIS Enterprise, if you do not set those at the beginning when you first publish it, there's ways you can go into Server Manager and do some of those. But again, going back to that planning section that I shared, understanding which layers you're going to want to push through as copies, making those changes before you bring it into and try to collaborate with it. That way you don't get the sync failed and you don't know why. So kind of putting that in your mind of those are things that are very important. Some more prerequisites for shared editing. Was it published in ArcGIS Pro 2.7 or later? So this shared editing is really taking off. And so that's why I left these in here because if you think about it, the ability to 2 different parties to share and edit data, but be in different organizations without sequential logins. I mean, that could be very beneficial for a lot of people And let me give you one example that I've seen with this. There was a data set that one of the state agencies was wanting to share, but the people doing the editing were going to be outside of their organization. They're going to be contractors. So they couldn't give them access to their enterprise and to their SQL Server database. So we worked with them and showed them the shared editing. And this is the workflow they're going to do, is push the information out to via collaboration through to ArcGIS Online, and actually use Survey 123 and ArcGIS Online to collect the data, or to collect data and make edits to data that's then later pushed back into ArcGIS Enterprise and then eventually back into their SQL Server. So they're able to give outside access to others that go into their SQL Server. Word of warning on that, if you were to think about that workflow, you're basically giving someone outside access to edit your data. So be careful with your sharing and editing settings and who you're going to be sharing this data with, because there could be some gotchas in there, but there could be some great benefits. All right. I know we're down to less than 10 minutes. Jamie, any questions on that before I get to my tips for success?
Nope. Somebody asked
Okay.
for the, yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. So some tips for success. Where do I start? So one, you're doing that now. You're learning about collaboration's capabilities. Talk with your peers and other organizations who have set it up. If anyone else in the agent community has set it up and wants to use that, let's learn from their examples. If not, I know all of you have contacts here at Esri. You can talk to us. My colleagues there in Arizona who work with the local governments and others, you know, with the higher education community and so on. There's some great people here at Esri can help you with those types of questions. So I'd say talk to your peers. Definitely, if none of your peers have used this yet, talk to your Esri account teams. We're more than willing to give you some pointers and help you through the process. Plan ahead. I wish I could stress that even more. Understand which data sets you want to share, what frequencies, what access you're going to give. Know those things ahead of time, so that way when it does come time to initiate your collaboration, you're good to go. Your data is prepared, your settings are ready, you can build around them. You know, design your architecture, draw it out. Sit there on a whiteboard and say, who, you know, these are the data sets, where's the sources? Where are we publishing it to? Is it going to be a reference? Is it going to be a copy? There's all these kind of things you need to know about ahead of time. And then set up your collaboration and your groups. So once you understand and you plan, you can design it out so that way it works much, much smoother. Highly recommend this. So test a collaboration in advance and adjust your settings. So if you have your plan, you have your design, test a collaboration, whether it's within your own organization or if it's, say, city to city or a municipality to the county, or however you want to do that. Test it out with like a dummy data set. Something that if, oh, whoops, that accidentally got shared to everyone, we're not going to be out, you know, there's confidential data or anything like that. So testing it in advance before you really put it into production. I mean, that's not just a GIS best practice. That's a IT and security best practice. And then revisit your goals in architecture periodically. If the collaboration is working smoothly, oh, but we've got more demand. That could be, you know, we need to revisit our goals. We need to look at those. Communication, very, very key, because what organizations are going to be involved? Who's going to share and who's going to be the authoritative source of that content? Who will have access? What kind of editing? I mean, these are all great questions that as you're doing that planning portion, if more than one organization is involved, or even if it's, okay, let's think of the same organization, maybe there's other business units within that organization that's going to be involved. So Don't just think of it as, oh, we're all one city government. We're going to take care of this all on our own. Well, what about the other departments in that? That bullet point right there, what version is everyone on? If you want to do this shared editing, you got to make sure that everyone is on version 10.9. And I can tell you that not everyone is. I speak to a lot of customers and people are still, you know, they might wait till the .1 release or something along those lines. So as part of your planning process, make sure you know what version everyone's on. And I love that, et cetera, et cetera. We can't tell what all the questions are going to be, but there's all kinds of ones that could come up. So be flexible, because you could open up a can of worms that, whoa, this might be way too much, or really seeing that this could be a huge benefit to your organization. So ask questions, absolutely. And really all of these come back to your goals. How will collaboration and this quicker communication increase your business goals? So additional resources, or I know we're coming down to the last minutes. Some great blog posts are out there. We've got some case studies and some really top-notch documentation on how to set these up. The sharing of the layers, frequently asked questions. Please look at these documentation. And again, I will happily share this PowerPoint with everyone. Anyone who would like that, so that way you can get to these links quicker. But again, if you don't have access to this right away, talk to your colleagues, talk to your Esri account team. We're more than willing to help you get those things going. So with that, with 3 minutes to spare for any questions, there is my email. If you have questions along the way, you can send those to me. We can get you the right information for that. But thank you all for taking the time to be here today. Maybe it is a good thing that we didn't have all the demos, because we probably wouldn't have got through all the content today. But I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for AJ for having me.
Thanks, Corey. That was awesome. I think it ended up working well. It generated a lot of great questions for you. I am going to quickly
stop sharing my screen.
Little slide.
Okay, it's back. I'm logged off. Jamie, back to you.
Okay. Just to finish up here, thanks, Corey, again. And there was, people did want to know about downloading the slides. And Corey, I'll get with you afterwards on how we can get those to distribute to everyone. They will be, for those of you listening in here, the slide deck will be available as a download at the bottom of this page that you're on right here. So come back later. Also, if you want to see any of this presentation again, it is being recorded. And if you want to share it with other people, it is being recorded. So it will be available on demand within a couple hours after the end of this session. And then again, please complete the session survey to let us know, let Corey know how great you enjoyed his presentation. And if you want to connect with Corey, if he's made himself visible on the community attendees page, you can also message him through the online system here, but he also provided his email address and we can get that to you as well. So with that, enjoy the rest of the conference and thank you again, Corey.
Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it so much.